Next, I'd like to move on to defining default content to be generated in engagement files. And we define the default content that is generated using our edit content rules. So here within our balance sheet library, we can see our edit content rules button. Now, one of the key concepts within our GAAP Financials template is that we do not support the creation of sub-templates. Instead, we have a single master template which will modify itself based on the type of engagement you are working on. And the edit content rules area is the feature we use to support that functionality. Now, before we evaluate this further, let's jump back to our engagement level file. Okay, at this time, I just want to draw your attention to our financial statement options document. This is the document that we must complete prior to generating our financial statements. And in completing this document, we are going to be providing the program with various information about our engagement. So for example, if we go into our entity structure, the type of information we're going to feed to the program in each engagement file will be what type of entity are we working on? Are we working on a public company, a private limited company, a partnership, etc.? What type of framework are we working within, public or private enterprise? If we review our financial settings, here we can specify our data reporting period for the engagement we're working on. If we go to our auditor's report, we can define our assurance report type. So are we working on an audit, a review, or a compilation? And then if we go to our balance sheet, for example, we can specify whether we require a classified or an unclassified balance sheet. So this is just some examples of information we're providing to the program about the engagement we're working on prior to generating our financial statements. So once we've completed this information, we can open our financial statements and generate them, and the financial statements will be generated according to the options selected in the financial statement options document, as well as customizations made at the master template level. So once again, we're going to now return to our master template. We're going to access, we're still in our engagement file, one moment please. And we're in our content rules dialog screen. So within this dialog screen, we have the ability to define what content will be used by default. This feature can be used as simple or as complex as your organization or practice requires. So, for example, let's say you're in a corporate environment, so really you're just going to be generating the same statements year in, year out, and you're not going to have much need to vary the content. You would be able to use this feature on its most simple basis. So let's examine that first, and then we'll move on to some more complex scenarios. So what the program is saying at this time is in my financial statement options document within my client file, if I specify that I require a classified balance sheet, then regardless as to the entity I'm working on, and if you watch my cursor, you'll see in the tooltip next to my cursor, each entity is identified. So regardless as to whether I'm working on a public company, a private limited company, a partnership, etc., regardless as to which framework I'm working within, what the assurance report type is, or what the reporting period is, when I generate my financial statements, if I specify that I require a classified balance sheet in the financial statement options document, the classified balance sheet provided by CaseWare will be the one that is automatically generated. So if I was to use this at its most simple level, I could simply say, I do not want to use the classified balance sheet. Instead, I want to use my firm-created balance sheet. So now, regardless as to the entity, framework, assurance report type, or reporting period, when I generate my financial statements at the engagement level, the balance sheet is the one that will be included by default. Now, we can also use this to vary the content that is generated by default depending on the engagement that we're working in. So for example, if you're working within a public practice, different engagements may require different content. So I could, for example, say, if I specify that I require a classified balance sheet and I am working with a public company in any framework on an audit or a review on a yearly or quarterly basis, when I generate my financial statements at the engagement level, by default, I would like to include the classified balance sheet. However, alternatively, I could say if I'm working with a public company on any framework, on a compilation on a yearly or quarterly basis, instead, I would like to automatically generate the do-it-yourself classified balance sheet. And then finally, I could say for all other entity types, we can go ahead and use the balance sheet that I have created. So this is the feature that determines what content is generated within your financial statements by default when you generate those statements in each engagement file. This feature is available to you in each and every knowledge library. So at the engagement level, once we've completed the options in the financial statement options document, depending on the type of engagement we're completing, when we generate our financial statements, all relevant content will be included by default. And of course, if a mistake is made and the content included by default is not the content that you require, you can always pull the correct content through your knowledge libraries.